Hello everyone, welcome to Ask Polymath Geddy, your polymathic source for all information, knowledge, and wisdom. We have a question from Isabel in Fairfax, Virginia. Hello Isabel, how are you this evening? She says, can science prove or disprove the existence of God? If it can, why do people still believe in him? If it cannot, why do people claim he does not exist with absolute certainty? Thanks for your time and brain. Well, you're welcome for my time and brain. I hope you pass on my time and brain to other people as well if you find this answer in any way helpful. Now, your question is very interesting, and it's a very deep question that people from the beginning of time have been arguing and killing each other over. So I'm going to make this, or at least try to make this, relatively brief. I do believe, without a shadow of a doubt, the existence of God can be proven. There are three basic arguments that I can come up with off the top of my head that can verify this. Now, before I get into that, I want to say that a lot of atheists, I don't want to piss off atheists because they'll never stop on this video, but basically, a lot of people who don't believe in something don't believe it for emotional reasons and have not considered the full scope of the problem and the question. They haven't actually considered all possibilities. They haven't actually asked themselves all relevant questions. So they don't really know what to really think because they haven't asked the important questions that would be a make or break answer. Here are the three major points that I want you to consider on the existence of God and how to prove the existence of God. Number one, there's the ontological argument, which is the objective moral values, absolute rights argument. Now, if absolute rights exist, in other words, if anyone can have any rights at all, where do they come from? Who is to say they're not arbitrary? Who's to say someone's morals are subjective? You know, if you think it's wrong to kill, rape, and stab and steal, but someone else doesn't, what makes you right and not them? It can't be a matter of opinion, because if it's subjective, then no one's right. Or should I say, whoever has the biggest club is right. Whoever has the machine gun or the missiles, they're right. You see what I'm saying? If it's a matter of who is the most physically dominant, then it's not a matter of a moral argument anymore anyway. It's just a matter of war. So you have to determine what makes something absolutely right or absolutely true. And if something is not absolutely right or wrong, then maybe there is no God. But if something is right or wrong, if it's wrong for someone to steal what is yours, if it's right for you to help your brother or sister or parent or child or friend in a time of need, then something has to come from outside of that to deem it so. It cannot be merely our opinion of it that makes it so. Now, we can all agree that something is right or wrong, and it can still be subjective because all of our opinions are based on opinion. So it has to be based on some absolute eternal truth for it to have any kind of authority as being true. So that is the first argument. It's called the ontological argument. You can look that up and find more information on the internet. I'm sure it's up there. The next argument is the cosmological argument of infinite regress. A lot of people who say that God doesn't exist also say the universe always was here. Well, the fact is, you cannot have an infinite regress. If you have an infinite number of yesterdays, today could never come. I would never be talking to you right now. You would never have been born because there would have to have been an infinite number of days prior to your birth before you can ever have that day of your birth. You see, and even if you had millions of years added into the past before you were born, you would need millions more, and then millions more, and then millions more, and it just will never end. So the fact is, you cannot have infinite regress. There had to have been a finite beginning on this physical realm of this earth, this universe. Everything had to have started from somewhere. And even time itself must have started, because time can even be traced to the beginning. So the fact is, what created time? What created the Big Bang? What created all that exists? The fact is, something that had to have been timeless, spaceless, and all-powerful must have created this, because you cannot have something come out of nothing, period. I mean, science has proven you can't have something come out of nothing. So something must have come from something else. The universe and all that exists here must have come from something else. That something else is a all-powerful, omnipotent being, which you can call God, you can call Yahweh, you can call whatever you're going to call it in your language. That's fine. It's God, basically. It's the creator of the universe. There's also a common sense argument. It's called the argument of intelligent design. I think scientists have concluded that the probability of intelligent design for a life-permitting universe was, I think, 1 million of 100 billionth or something like that of a percent. I mean, you put a 0 point and then put billions of zeros after that and then add a 1 back there. That there's like such a slim chance that is almost incomprehensibly, infinitesimally small to have ever happened, and yet it did, and here we are. And all of life seems to work together. We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. Trees breathe in carbon dioxide, they breathe out oxygen. We coexist. How is it that just the right elements appeared on this earth at just the right times for us to coexist? How is it that certain planets in rotation around the sun are keeping the gravitational pull of the earth in orbit so that we remain the third planet from the sun and not the fifth or the eighth or the first? You know, if we were any closer, we'd burn to death. If we were any further, we'd freeze to death. It just takes us a slight bit difference for everything to go off balance. And so the laws of intelligent design are profound. And how are you going to explain that? I mean, that's more of a common sense argument. I can go into the science behind it, or I can research it for you and delve into it even more, but that's just more of a common sense argument. So those are the basic arguments. We have, I'll recap for you one more time. We have the ontological argument, which is the argument of objective moral values and absolute rights. If someone has a right that must be defended for the sake of justice, then that right must have some kind of validation. It can't just be arbitrary. It can't just be subjective. We have to, in some way, prove this person's rights have been violated. Where do the rights come from? If they just come from your opinion, then someone else's opinion will knock yours down. It can't just be a matter of opinion. It has to be an absolute truth. If there's an absolute truth, only absolute truth can come from God. There is no such thing as an absolute truth that doesn't come from God. If there's no God, nothing is absolutely true or not. It's just a question of opinion, perception, and what you want to accept as reality. And whoever argues with the biggest club is the one that wins in the end, because he'll take everyone else out and he'll be the only one standing, and his decree will preside. His description of reality will remain true. 2 plus 2 will be 5 because he said it, and if you argue, smash, you're gone. See, that's a very barbaric way of thinking. So you can't have a subjective reality. You know, you can say God exists or doesn't exist. If you can't prove it, then it's just a question of who has the biggest club. So, yes, rights exist and morals exist. And the fact is, if good and evil exist, that's another one that you can add to the ontological argument. If good or evil exist, then absolute rights must exist and objective moral values must exist. So there's your ontological argument. And the cosmological argument of infinite regress is very simple and it's very self-explanatory. You cannot have an infinite number of yesterdays because today would never exist. And finally, the probability of intelligent design and how it is so infinitesimally small that the chances of it happening are far less than slim and far closer to none. And yet it happens. And here we are. So thank you for your question. I hope I answered it in a helpful way. If you want to find more information, I suggest going to reasonablefaith.org. Look up Dr. William Lane Craig. I've learned a lot from him on the subject. He's a phenomenal speaker. He's a brilliant mind, a dizzying intellect. And if I'm saying that, believe me, it is true. And you can find all kinds of information on that. And he speaks of God in a more intelligible, less preachy way. He speaks more on the terms of understanding cosmology and time and philosophy, and not so much dogma and brainwashing, so to speak. So I would suggest looking him up. Other than that, thank you for your question. I hope I answered it well. And as always, keep the questions coming to AskPolymathGeddy@gmail.com. Include your name, location, and a brief paragraph for your question. All right. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll talk to you all very soon.